I've told this story many times, but when Janine hosted Crossfire with Tucker Carlson, they would spend a lot of time out back smoking cigarettes. Tucker would smoke with Janine and talk about how he didn't really care that much about the Iraq War, and then would go out and just promote the Iraq War, because that's the type of guy he is. Here he is on Friday complaining about smoking, and the big achievement for the Republicans in Congress, making smoking legal again in that building.
So what's interesting is that for the past 2 years, the Biden administration has been actively encouraging drug use among Americans, not just weed. There are dispensaries on every corner in every town in the country all of a sudden. Some people are getting rich from it. Smoke more weed. It's good for you. But also,
pause it for 1 second.
Yeah, we need to. I mean, Biden was one of the only major Democratic presidential candidate who did not support the legalization of cannabis for really, like, I mean, he toyed with it for medical purposes, right? But
pass the touchy.
Anyway,
4 months ago, for the first time in his administration, he did one thing, and that was to pardon federal drug possession violators, none of whom were in prison. I mean, the pardon was helpful because they can go on and they have it expunged from their career, I mean, their record and whatnot. And all he did was basically say, we're going to have a committee that will look at changing the schedule, the drug schedule, and they can't do that unilaterally. They need statutory authority to do so. Let's be clear. There's 20 some odd states now have recreationally legal marijuana, more with medical marijuana. That's a state by state thing. So he's just lying with that as the premise, of course, but then it becomes more problematic.
And crack. The Biden administration has literally sent crack pipes to crack addicts, something we never thought would happen, but they're doing it.
No, they're not.
On the other side, you have Republicans. They're back in control of the House of Representatives. And because they are, on the House side, Republican members who want to smoke tobacco once again can. They couldn't when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker because she had banned tobacco smoking in the Capitol complex back in 2007. Now, you'd think this would be non-controversial in a country where you're allowed to smoke meth in a park. Kids are encouraged to smoke
Pause
weed.
it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. We're going to have to go back and address the meth in the park thing. But just to be clear, Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House for 2 years. Prior to that, it was Paul Ryan was the Speaker of the House, or I should say subsequent to Nancy Pelosi being Speaker of the House in 2007. So if the Republicans wanted to turn it back, then they could have. Continue.
Controversial in a country where you're allowed to smoke meth in a park. Kids are encouraged to smoke weed.
No.
But it's very controversial because unlike meth and weed and crack, tobacco is bad. Several members of the Capitol Press Gallery are horrified by this, and they're complaining. So you have to kind of wonder,
it's
why
more
is tobacco
carcinogenic.
so
yes,
dangerous?
okay, pause it. The point is that there are studies after studies that secondhand smoke can actually hurt people. Yep. It creates issues health-wise for people who choose not to smoke. And that's why his examples, even though as ridiculous as they are about smoking in a public park or outside, they're outside, meaning it's a personal decision that people are able to make without harming people. If there was a policy about you can smoke meth in a closed space in the Capitol building, that would be problematic as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is very characteristic of this whole like freedom debate, where you have like as you say, a park. There's no employees that have to be there, for instance, like that. Which is not the case of Congress or say a restaurant. And you always hear through my entire life, I've heard these like libertarian guys complain about this smoking stuff being in restaurants, and that you never hear them say, hey, you know, your landlord shouldn't be able to tell you if you smoke in your apartment or not. That never comes up because they actually don't care about that. They want to be able to smoke at a restaurant and infect the lungs of anybody there and then go on with their life.
And there's a reason he keeps saying crack, we should be clear, and meth and things that he wants to scare people about. It's why they've tried so hard to tie fentanyl not to pharmaceutical companies but to people coming over the border. It's because these are dog whistles that are racist. Tucker Carlson, I guarantee you, knows dozens of people who do blow. Cocaine, but they just snort it up their nose. But crack and meth, that's scary. Someone who's brown might be smoking that.
And I think the point too, Matt, about touching on libertarians, like I think people need to start becoming aware of exactly like how libertarians have repositioned themselves. Now he is anti, drug legalization, though he's not harping on that as much as using it as some type of leverage to talk about how offensive it is with tobacco, but all of like the push that we're seeing about, authoritarianism, whether in the context of like the Twitter files or whatnot, this is all just sort of libertarianism poking its head out without having the sort of like low hanging fruit that it used to have. Like I said, 20 some odd states have legalized cannabis, more in terms of medical. That used to be a big selling point for libertarianism. The anti-war stuff, Biden he has plenty of foreign policy failures, but he has cut down on the number of drone strikes dramatically from both Obama and from Trump. He has pulled troops out of Afghanistan. I don't want to overstate the case, but in terms of like it being an allure to a pitch that libertarians can have, it doesn't have the same resonance as it did when we had 2 active wars going on and the drones going in Pakistan and in Somalia and in Yemen and whatnot. And so this authoritarianism, we're going back to like the sort of the libertarianism where people were upset about seatbelts and why we're getting this stuff about the like. People are enraged about the gas stoves causing asthma. It's the same as the light bulb stuff. That's where we're coming back to. But continue.
They are horrified by this and they're complaining. So you have to kind of wonder, why is tobacco so dangerous? Well, we thought we would ask a member of Congress who uses it, who smokes an occasional cigar. Troy Allen joins us tonight. Congressman, grateful that you're here.
Cigars in his pocket.
For the most American of all pleasures, which is
why don't you
tobacco.
smoke those in the studio? Why don't you smoke in the studio?
Just wait.
Tucker Carlson smokes.
Light up.
Why isn't he smoking in the studio? They used to do that. Johnny Carson used to smoke. Dean Martin. Why does he smoke?
He's got the cellophane off one of those, so let's see.
I'm talking about Carlson. Why doesn't he light up a cigarette? Why doesn't he light up a cigarette right now?
Crowder would do it.
Go ahead.
Which is tobacco. Sorry to say it. It's true. It founded the country. Tell us why it's important for you to burn a cigar.
Pause it. We should also just mention, yes, tobacco founded the country. Who put that tobacco?
I funded an awful lot of horrible things.
Yeah. It was just the tobacco, not the labor on which it was picked, right? The slave labor. Remember that part? Also, I hope that those are not Cubans, right? Although probably not, because they seem to have some big seal on them indicating they're American.
I hope one of those breaks in that pocket, and then you can't ever get the tobacco out of
Oh my gosh, like sand in your shoes.
Impossible.
Grateful that you're here, willing to stand up for the most American of all pleasures, which is tobacco. Sorry to say it. It's true. It founded the country. Tell us why it's important for you to burn a cigar occasionally in your office.
Well, thank you for having me, Tucker. It's all about freedom. It's interesting that dishonest media and those they want to complain about a little smoke coming out of my cigar, they don't want to talk about the inflation or the crime or the southern border. And people have been enjoying cigars. Nations leaders, world leaders, from Winston Churchill to United States presidents, from Andrew Jackson to Theodore Roosevelt, Nixon, JFK. They like smoking their cigars. We even know that Bill Clinton, he enjoyed a good cigar every once in a while. So I don't know what all the hoopla is all about. You're right. In 2007, under Pelosi, she said you cannot smoke cigars in the Capitol building, i.e. you can't smoke cigars on the House floor or in committee hearings. But it did not include members' offices. So a member's house office, we've always been able to smoke cigars. There are many of us in the cigar caucus, about 30 of us, that enjoy a good cigar in our office, and we do so. Nancy Pelosi, for 2 years, I've been smoking cigars. Nobody complains about it. but now they want to come after us because we're in the majority. This is typical from the left. They want to infringe on our rights.
Pause for a second. This reminds me of like being in 4th grade and being like, yeah, we were at Tom's house for a sleepover, and his parents like usually let us stay up till like 2 a.m., but his dad was home today, and he made us turn the TV off at midnight and go to bed.
And I gotta say too, like the link to Pelosi, there have been studies, and like I will say, you know, my mom had cancer, and the risk factor that her doctor most associated with it was the fact that both her parents were smokers, and she had a lot of secondhand smoke growing up. We don't know if that's the case, but there is a little bit of a tinge of like, mommy is telling us what to do here, and we just want to be big old boys in Congress again, when we could all do Mad Men cosplay and pretend that we were, you know, the white guys in the smoke-filled room making decisions, but that naggy bitch Nancy Pelosi is telling us what we can and cannot do. Those are also the undertones of this, to be honest with you, and it makes sense that women might be a little more sensitive to it given the actual like association with breast cancer and other cancers for that matter. But
I just love the idea that a grown man says like, I belong to the cigar caucus.
Yeah, I mean, it's, honestly, like the ritual way that like, we light them up sometimes, it honestly sounds like a hippie being like, yeah, I'm lighting this to sort of dispel the negative vibrations that have infested that. It's like, you're just doing it for freedom, but it's the exact same like woo bullshit.
Right.
So I got some sage here too. We're just doing good.
Burn this for freedom.
Complain about our smoke. They're probably complaining about maybe my aftershave or the color of my tie. It doesn't.
Is it cancerous?
I'm not wearing a tie.
But if you were smoking weed or meth, no one would say anything. What?
Yes, they would.
I think it would be a pretty big scandal.
Congressman smoking weed. It's all right.
You can't say nothing. Actually, like Pelosi's been smoking meth for 4 years, and we can't say anything because the press won't give us any run.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, I know you got a cigar in there, but can I recommend just smoke some meth instead?
Yeah,
just
right.
So that we don't get so much heat on us. Go ahead.
Which was a religious sacrament for the American Indians, for all the Mesoamerican Indians. What is it about tobacco that triggers them so profoundly, do you think?
I don't know. Maybe they've never tried one,
Cancer.
but you look at a nice Ashton cigar. It's a beautiful cigar. It's mild.
That's the way he's going to get free cigars.
It's a great cigar. Try one.
Good, light it up. There we go. Oh,
he's got one of those.
wait, what happened?
What?
Strike
What?
the blow for freedom.
You didn't light it.
That is the smell of freedom. We appreciate your coming.
There's no smoke coming out of that thing.
Didn't light
Thank you.
it.
God bless.
Great to see you.
That did not work. That's a metaphor.
Sometimes you light it up. Sometimes you
Tucker
hold
Carlson
the,
smokes. Maybe he quit, but if he quit, why did he quit? And if he didn't quit, why isn't he smoking on his show?
Many people are asking.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The whole like our country is founded in part about the exploitation of that commodity is true, and that's why it took us so long to admit the reality that it's giving a lot of people cancer.
Exactly. Like I say, cancer has dropped by 30% in this country in 30 years. Now, it's not all a function of diminished smoking, but that's a big part of it.
In the 80s, you can see like McDonald's ashtrays.
Yeah.
Oh my God! No, I mean it was in the 90s. Like you go into a bar,
I remember
and it's
those.
just like you could not even see.
Yeah.
And that is just like, yeah, like I should be allowed to expose these people who I don't know how much they were making in the 80s, McDonald's workers, to my cigarette smoke while I eat this Happy Meal.